Okay, see that just going through basically changing camera number one, camera location, and changing the layout of the presentation itself. So now this time we just have changed one major thing, the PDF scroll down of the questions to images. Basically, the images are better to control than the PDF because the PDF comes preset with certain settings from the package that we received it from. So now the images are easier to manipulate, they're easier to exclude if needed. But then the initial setup part of it is a bit can be a bit tricky because you have to like sort and do all that business. But the naming of it is good because the names are okay. Even if the questions were to be mismatched, the names will still be able to control the paper properly. I did have to go outside and catch my breath, just preparing basically for this post and for this edit. And then because I had been up all night, still a bit gloomy. Study being a bit gloomy, but yeah, let's continue with the process. Okay, so we started off with a process here. It was a bit messy. The process here it was just an issue basically, a simple issue of the Firebase and authentication space. Basically, just that's why I like printing object, just seeing basically where it fails and all that stuff. But the issue here was basically the fact that the authentication was trying to use a bucket that I have locked. So I just had to open up that bucket basically to be able to fetch from that. But that went on for a while up until I managed to basically work my way through that. Yeah. So what this entail, okay, there we're having the images back, right? So now just pulled a couple of images. The data does show all those papers, basically. All those not necessarily papers, but questions and sections of the paper. So the data ended up, it was just a Firebase issue, ended up returning well. And then the function works clean enough. So from here on now we can work because we have our data coming back to us from our Firebase, basically. Okay, so with this step, it's simple go edit. So trying to migrate everything from the press, right? That popped up an input box for us, right? So we're trying to come from that location that we had previously. So it's a lot of like back and forth, just copy code, paste, copy, paste, and edit. And then we're migrating all of that. We're still using, as you see there, we're still using basically our default values with numbers. We're going to change those to the names of the images basically saved in our database. So now we're trying to move from that location to a point where we're able to have the pop-up now. Not necessarily a pop-up in this case. This case is used as a visual visibility widget. It's visible or not visible. So a person might assume it's a pop-up, but it's not. It's just a visibility widget. So now we're going through that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that from the previous one we don't recreate something new. It does take longer, of course. Sometimes you just copy and paste, but then it was working well. So, and it was saving in a space that I like. Could have taken way shorter time, of course, to just create a new save location. But yeah, just migrating from there. And then we'll be able to do what? We'll be able to input text. We'll be able to input the what you call this we have the name as well of the paper instead of saying images from WEM. So now we have the name as well. There's our input area for the text. And then from our input area for the text, it means that now we can actually try to insert something, but we must have our paper so that it pops up from the paper, right? So after it pops up from the paper, so there is a layer, both of them on top of each other. So now it needs to like appear on press. So which means every image needs to have an on press of its own. Not everything going on there is necessarily going to be visible because a lot of the code is also hidden between shifting left and right. But because it's not necessarily open source anyway, it's like just to pick up and see basically what's going on in the project. But otherwise, so the idea behind this is to make sure that we're able to get to a point where we are able to save the data locally because we're not going to the database yet. We're going to be saving the data locally. and then we want the images to respond, and so the UI basically must respond to each input, right? To each what you call this, to each it's what you call image, basically to each image that we're inputting. So now, since we know that we're going to be targeting each image, it's easy for us to say, okay, we need to edit as well the names of what the names of the images, the names of the data that links to what, to the answers of the images, right? The answers of the questions, right? So in this process, it was just basically figuring that part out and putting that part together. Where we managed to push through that. Took a bit of a while, but then it was also a lot of thinking in terms of what's going to happen when it comes to actually having the answer. I know that the answer space at the moment doesn't spread to cover the area with, we need as much room as possible when we're answering the questions, right? Especially when you're going to be using when you're going to be using like your whiteboard. But the whiteboard, we will get to a space where that whiteboard can behave better. It will be much more leaner than wide, but then in the desktop version, it should be very wide. So for now, it's going to stay the same size, behaving like sort of mobile. In most likely cases, the space of the profiles on the side, it will go away in most likely cases. We will then replace that with something else, maybe like a button at the bottom that either shows or closes profiles, right? So now we're not able to select yet. Let me see where the space we're in. Okay, we should be able to select now the page, and then it appears. The next step was mainly to, let me see that what we're doing. Okay. Oh, we have errors here and there, I guess the length of everything of each question, and then we're able to view the questions, and then from there, I guess this section is very long in terms of like what I need to say and what I need to say. So which means I'm going to have to cut it at some point, cut with my audio after it's all done, and then just say, okay, this is the entirety of that process, what it ended up becoming. So at this point, we are changing basically what the images behave like, what the data, right? The, there would be data from the DB that links to the images looks like. We are changing that, trying to make sure that it responds to what, to the new setup of images instead of responding to the old setup of the the old setup of the PDF, right? So now it responds to the new type of images, but that went okay. So let's see. At first, I decided to go with images, not images, icons. The icons. So the icons are flat. Which icons are these ones? They're not the original Flutter icons. They are icons. Flow of Awesome, I think it's Flow Awesome for Flutter Awesome. Yeah, I think it's Flutter Awesome icons. So I decided to go with the icons. Basically to mark whether a section needs to be done or has to be done. So since I went with the icons, I had to set up that icon process to just make sure that I'm able to get the right icons. But then after a bit of deliberation, I noticed that I'm not interested that much in the icons being a markup because the colors can do that job anyway. So the icon is there still on the future version. So we moved on from the icons. And then now we're at a point where we are using only the colors. The icons idea is it's useful enough maybe for a check of something that's done and maybe an X of something that's not done. But otherwise, we moved on to the colors. From there, it was a process of basically trying to do what, trying to match what, so I went with numbers, trying to match the original numbers that we used before in the PDF, trying to match them with the new image numbers. But the image numbers are kind of like a bit scattered because you're counting using the index. While counting using the index, it's an issue because of what? Because the stuff is not ordered. So now we had to go through some ordering issues. Then we ordered after managing to pull off the order. We then had to focus mainly though on the names. As you see that the names are selected. So focusing on the names, of the images basically as they are uploaded to our backend. Basically, we do have a basically a storage for those images online. They're not local. That's one of the parts that are already live, I guess. So those images, we just had to go through now. From that process, we had to go through each what you call this image on the original ones that are selected in section 1, and then make sure that we make the names correspond with all of them so that they match properly, and we're able to do what we're able to uh, match those questions basically that are going to be in text in the database with the actual images, because the images themselves just hold a name. They hold no other data except for just bringing back the name and the URL, basically, if you're going to fetch them from the storage they're sitting in. Okay, since that process went well, okay, so we're just gonna jump directly from there to the space where we are busy now with the color coding. So you see now the colors, as everything has slowed down, the colors are basically looking okay, I guess. We're starting off with the black in the background. That's going to change. So now the focus just mainly on colors, using basically the colors to control the questions that the spaces that have questions, because now it's sticking together as if it's one page, which looks neat if you wanted to view the paper as it is. Very nice, right? However, the paper does have questions basically that need to be answered. So some of them will then, as you see, they're white, the ones that have questions, then the ones that don't have questions basically blacked out, right? We still have the numbers there, but as you see there, the numbers are still not working okay. So we'll get to a point where we're just sorting, because there's one, the numbers are not basically 1 to 8, I believe, in that one. Or is it 18? But I'm not. Yeah, it's 1 to 8. So we're just going to work on the numbers, making sure that each question sits properly. The questions do sit properly. I think from the top, there is, yeah, there's a 14, I believe. There's something going on from the top that basically does what? It basically shifted a couple of pages down and mixed them up in the middle because of the sorting issue. So we're gonna deal with the sort, and then we're gonna take it from there for how it looks. It should be okay after the sort. So the sort went good. So now we're just trying out to see basically our answers. How does and save, or let me just add that first. Then we just see basically how does it feel? How does it feel? Of the answers look basically after you've inputted the answer, because you have to add the answer and then save it. But if you don't add it, you can't save, of course. So you add the answer and then you save it, and then the color changes. Now we are using red for answered. That one might be up for debate to see basically which color is best for saved, as much as there's the green in the background for the ones that in the terms of the icons, the ones that are able to be done. So I kept it throughout being red. It will be more relevant basically when you're able to see the answers. That will become more relevant basically of what is going on there in that space, because the answers will show up in a space basically that needs to be like visible. So now when for red the response is proper, then we're moving on from that location. Okay, we're introducing the size now of the what you call it, the size of the my writing that doesn't show up properly. Yeah, we're introducing the size of the board, right? The size of the whiteboard. So the size of the whiteboard needs to be increased, but we're gonna increase it vertically, not horizontally, because if we increase horizontally, we're just introducing problems to ourselves, I guess, for ourselves, because now the image can get, it'll be easier to fit height than to fit width, right? So we're looking at the size basically of the board right now, and then we want to do what? We want to increase that size to be able to with that bar that we have there, so that when you're inputting, if you decide you need more space, you just drag it along and then it increases, right? Increases properly with the page basically, and then after it increases, it means that you're able to do what? You're able to easily input that or write your I guess on your whiteboard. This is that process, and then also accompanied by the process where we want to be able to view our inputted text. So now if you have an answer, we're getting to a point where you're able to see that answer, and then you're able to do what, to see the answer like below your current question, which is easier, I guess, for viewing and for knowing what you have done or what you haven't done. Up until we have reached our final destination with the first part. Okay, this is going to be in two parts. Okay, so the answer is able to be locked in and you're able to see the color, and then able to answer the next one, right? And then you're able to edit and then add a board. The difference was with this one, the board doesn't really show up on the question space or answer space basically, and we are trying to move from that, because see there is no sheet basically. Let's say the image is not showing, right? So then it means that we have to move on from that and then get to a space where we're able to do what, where we're able to have that board showing, because no matter what you do, you'll need that board to show up. You see the test board, and then if you submit, right, you want to see that data, but right now we're not able to see that data. So what's happening here, it means that now we're able to do what, if we move on from that step, we've added like our option to be able to save that data. Simple enough, if we go through that and then we add, we have A for this one, then we're able to see we want to be able to see the image now, right? That's the final destination basically. Maybe not to show off your answer, right? So there we are. So that answer shows up now. So which means that our question and answer shows up properly. We can have a nicer way to make it look, basically maybe just have the cards for the answers, but otherwise so far you're able to put in your answer both in text and in basically in the whiteboard. So you see, as I answer these questions, you're able to do what, you're also able to answer a question you've answered, or I guess go back to one you have skipped, right? So the entire thing is clear enough, and then of course an addition of login, which is going to be part of the next step with the profile. So that is it for this one. We are done. Basically, we have achieved our objective of being able to show the answers underneath basically the questions. So which means next time we'll be focusing mainly on basically, I guess, the profile, and we'll see.